The vanishing of Morning Lake in the autumn of 1986. 15 young boys boarded a school bus for what was supposed to be an ordinary field trip. They never returned. No accident, no wreckage. No bodies, just ... gone. For nearly 40 years, Morning Lake whispered legends about those children, about the fog that swallowed them whole and the forest that refused to give them back. And then, in 2025, something impossible happened. A rusted school bus was found buried deep beneath the earth in a forgotten corner of Morning Lake Woods. Alongside it, a boy, alive, and what he remembered would shatter everything the town believed. Before we begin, subscribe, share, and make sure no name stays forgotten. The fog hung heavy that morning over Halstead County like a secret waiting to be unearthed. It slid across the blacktop, wrapped itself around pine trunks, and dimmed porch lights into flickering stars. You could drive 4 miles and not even notice the ghosts you passed. That's how memory worked in this place. Didn't disappear. It simply went quiet. It was just after 7 a.m. when the radio crackled to life in Deputy Sheriff Logan Whitaker's kitchen. He was still in boxers, the smell of fresh coffee dancing through the air. The voiceover dispatch was tight with adrenaline. Possible discovery, Morning Lake Pines. Crew digging a septic trench, unearthed what they believe is a bus. License plate matches a long cold case. Logan's fingers tightened around the ceramic mug. The heat didn't register. The name of the case already burned in his mind. 15 boys, 1 driver, vanished. May 1986. They were from Halstead Ridge Elementary. Logan's school. Logan's grade. His class. He should have been on that trip, but he was out sick. Measles. For decades. He carried a guilt so strange it felt like a debt unpaid, that he had lived when they hadn't. He didn't even finish his coffee. Just grabbed his badge, keys, and gun, and left the door swinging in the breeze. The drive was slow. The fog made everything feel stretched. Unreal. Pines loomed on either side like ancient guards. Logan passed the decaying remains of the ranger station, long abandoned, and turned onto the old service road once, a path to the summer nature camp, the boys' destination. He remembered the excitement. The last trip before summer vacation, a lake, fire pits, newly built cabins. He remembered the yearbook photos, faces smashed against school bus windows, all laughter and Walkmans and superhero love. They had been so alive. When he arrived, the construction crew had already roped off the site. A patch of yellow metal peeked through the mud-faded, crushed, broken by time. A backhoe stood beside it like it had done something wrong. "Sir," the site foreman said, removing his hard hat, "we didn't touch a damn thing once we realized. You'll want to see it yourself." Logan's boots sank into the damp soil, his throat too tight for words. The emergency exit at the back of the bus had been pried open. A wave of stale, earthy air escape mold, time, and something else. Something wrong. The inside was worse. The seats were there. So were the belts. Some were even still latched. A Spider-Man lunchbox lay under the 3rd row. A single sneaker rested on the back step, covered in dried moss, but there were no bodies. Not one. The absence screamed louder than corpses. Logan stepped forward, heart pounding, eyes sweeping the interior. On the front dashboard, something was taped down. A piece of paper, brittle but intact, a class list, written in the looping, cheerful script of Mr. Delaney, the homeroom teacher who had also vanished that day. 15 names, boys, all between the ages of 9 and 11, and scrawled across the bottom, written in thick red marker, as if by a different hand, "We never made IT to Morning Lake." Back in town, the Halstead County Records building smelled of mildew and pine. The ceiling fan turned lazily, as though waiting for time to start again. Logan stood at the front desk, fists clenched. The clerk returned with a dusty cardboard box. Trip 6B, Holstead Ridge Elementary, May 21st, 1986. Sealed after 5 years, no further updates. Logan took it without a word and carried it to a side table. Inside, there were old photos, lists of items packed by each child, and the final report: missing persons, presumed lost, no evidence of foul play. That phrase had haunted the town for decades. No evidence, no crime, no answers, but Logan had always believed otherwise. The bus driver was a woman, Carla Davis. She'd been newly hired, barely screened, no husband, no children. After the incident, she vanished without a trace. And the substitute teacher, Mr. Atwell, no one remembered hiring him. His listed address was now just a weed-choked lot at the edge of town. Another phantom. Logan flipped through an old class photo. He recognized every face. He paused on one in particular. Noah Keller. Big front teeth, messy hair, a red bandana around his wrist. Noah had lived just a few houses down. They used to trade baseball cards and dig holes in the backyard, swearing they'd find treasure. Logan didn't realize he was crying until a knock snapped him out of it. Deputy Harper stood in the doorway, pale. "Sheriff, you're gonna want to come with me." 15 minutes later, they stood in a hospital hallway. A nurse met them outside the room. "We found a boy," she said quietly. "Barefoot, clothes, no ID, says he's 12. She hesitated, then handed over a clipboard. Logan read the name, scrawled in shaky handwriting. Noah Keller. His knees almost buckled. "He said he was on a field trip." The nurse added, "He's been trying to get home." Logan entered the room slowly. The boy sat up in bed. His hair was wild, his face pale and gaunt, but the eyes, those wide, bright, hazel eyes, they were unmistakable. "Noah," Logan whispered. The boy blinked, tears welling. "You got old." Logan felt his throat clench. "You remember me?" Noah nodded. "You were sick. You were supposed to come." Tears blurred Logan's vision. "They said no one would come looking for us," Noah murmured. Logan sat down beside him, stunned. "Who told you that?" Noah looked toward the window. "We never made it to Morning Lake." Logan drove back to the station as the sun dipped behind the pine trees. The golden light streamed through the blinds of his office, casting long shadows across the whiteboard he'd cleared just that morning. He wrote the 15 names again, this time with trembling hands. 2 columns, clean, precise. Above them, in red marker, "Morning Lake Field Trip, May 21st, 1986. Below that, 1 line, "Noah Keller, found, May 5th, 2025. Appears physically 12. Claims no memory, past boarding bus. Repeats, we never made it to Morning Lake." But Logan couldn't stop thinking. If Noah was alive, where were the others? That night, he returned to the hospital. Doctors had finished their assessments: dehydration, sun exposure, minor abrasions, but no severe trauma, and it was him. Noah Keller. A perfect match. Logan found the boy curled beneath a blanket, staring into a paper cup of water like it held answers. "You came back," Logan said gently. Noah looked up. His voice was steadier now. "Do you believe me?" "I do." A sad smile tugged at Noah's lips. "Most don't." Logan sat beside him. "Can I ask you something?" The boy nodded. "Do you remember the bus ride?" Noah stared down. "Only the start. The driver didn't speak much. She wasn't our regular one. Then we stopped. A man was waiting." Logan leaned forward. "Do you remember his face?" "No. Beard, I think. But I remember what he said." "What did he say?" Noah's voice dropped to a whisper. "The lake isn't ready. We have to wait." Logan's skin prickled. Did he get on the bus? Noah nodded slowly. And then I woke up somewhere else. A barn. But not really. The windows were covered. The clocks were all wrong. What do you mean? They always said it was Tuesday. Every day. Even when it wasn't. We weren't allowed to talk about before. We had to use new names. Logan kept his face unreadable. Who were they? Noah's hands trembled. At first, a man and a woman. She called him Mr. Avery. I don't think that was his name. She disappeared after a while. I think she got sick. Do you know where the barn was? Noah shook his head. They moved us sometimes. In vans. We weren't allowed to look outside. They said the world forgot about us. Some of the others forgot too, Noah explained. Forgot school. Forgot their homes. Forgot their names. But I didn't, he whispered. I never did. Logan pulled something from his pocket, a faded yearbook photo. Noah stared. That's me, he whispered. And that's Caleb and James. You kept this? I never stopped, Logan said softly. Noah clutched the photo like it was air. Later that night, Logan parked outside the dilapidated Halstead barn. Something about Noah's description had triggered a memory. The barn had once belonged to a man named Francis Avery, died 2003. No family, except for one son, Max Avery, last known address. Blank. Moonlight draped the decaying structure in shadows. The air was cold, and the grass whispered underfoot. Logan moved toward the wall, flashlight sweeping across cracked wood. Something glinted. He crouched. A bracelet, purple, plastic, weathered, tangled in roots, etched in a child's handwriting. Tear. Logan's breath caught. Tommy Lang, one of the missing. She had been 10 years old. A shy, artistic girl who loved to draw dinosaurs and sign her name on everything. The bracelet was real, tangible, proof. The past wasn't buried. It was clawing its way back up. Back at the station, Logan didn't switch on the overheads, just the desk lamp. Warm amber light spilled across the surface, where he placed the bracelet beside the class photo. He lined it up with Tammy's face. Glasses. Pigtails. A grin missing 2 teeth. Then he picked up the phone. Cold Cases Division. This is Sheriff Logan Whitaker. I need everything you have on Max Avery, and any known associates. He didn't expect a call back that night, but the ghosts didn't sleep either. By morning, Morning Lake was buzzing. The excavation team from the State Historical Preservation Office had arrived. More of the earth around the buried bus had been cleared. The forest stood still, as if waiting. Logan stood by the emergency exit, arms crossed. One of the forensic investigators called out, "Sheriff, you're gonna want to see this." Logan walked over. Inside a sealed evidence sleeve was a photo, slightly curled, but in full color. Not aged like it should be. "Where did you find this?" Logan asked. "Behind the metal panel above the back window. Looked recently placed." The photo showed a group of boys 8, maybe 9, standing in front of a weathered wooden lodge. Expressions blank. Not afraid, not happy, just gone. In the center stood Noah. Vacant eyes, and behind them, barely visible in the shadows, a tall man in a wide-brimmed hat, bearded, watching. Logan flipped the photo over. The chosen, year to no date, no location. Back at the station, Logan added the photo to his growing caseboard. He stared at the phrase, "Year 2. They were held for years." He opened the county maps, cross-referenced Avery family holdings, abandoned buildings, deeds under shell names. One jumped out. Cedar Path Campground, private trust purchase, 1984, off-grid since the 90s, nestled against the forest, 30 miles from the bus site. He circled it in red. That afternoon, Logan showed the photo to Noah. The boy's reaction was instant. He gasped. His fingers trembled. "This was after our first winter," he whispered. "They made us pose every season to show we were progressing." Tears welled in his eyes. "That place, that building, is where they kept us the longest." "Do you know where it is?" Noah shook his head. "We were blindfolded every time we went outside. But I remember a river, a whistle at sunset, and the air always smelled like burning pine." Logan's heart pounded. Cedar Path was built beside a logging train used to pass through the area at dusk. He pointed at the shadowy figure in the background. "Do you recognize this man?" Noah hesitated. "That's not Mr. Avery," he whispered. "That's someone worse. Worse. They called him Father Elijah. He wasn't a priest. He just liked people to act like he was. What happened to him? I don't know. He just stopped coming. After year 3, they moved us again. New rules, new punishments. Some of us didn't make it." His voice broke. "Some forgot their names." Logan gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "But not you. You remembered. You came back." Noah nodded, but his face was distant. "They're still out there," he whispered. "Some of them. I feel it." He turned his head slowly and looked Logan in the eye. "The others, they don't want to be found."
The bet that changed everything. At a lavish New York party, Luciana was intrigued. Jacqueline smirked and threw out the challenge. "Let's see if you can win this one, Luciana. I bet you don't have the guts to marry someone who doesn't fit your usual type." Luciana, known for dating only the most charming and conventionally handsome men, raised an eyebrow. "And what's the prize?" With a mischievous grin, Jacqueline raised her champagne glass. $1 million to the winner, but you have to marry him and stay married for at least 6 months. The thrill of competition mixed with the lure of money. Luciana agreed without hesitation. The man Jacqueline had in mind was Kevin Richards, someone far from Luciana's usual taste. She didn't know him, but to her, this was just another bet to win. A few days later, Luciana received more information about Kevin. He was confident, fiercely independent, and strong-willed, nothing like the men she was used to. That made her even more curious. Luciana, used to being in control, wondered how she'd handle someone who refused to bend to her will. Their first meeting was set in an upscale restaurant. When Kevin walked in, Luciana immediately noticed he carried himself differently. He didn't shrink in the luxurious environment, and he certainly wasn't intimidated by her. "You must be Luciana Marshall," Kevin said coolly, sitting down. "And you must be Kevin Richards," she replied with a polished smile, extending her hand. He hesitated, then shook it firmly, showing strength and confidence. "Let's not beat around the bush," Kevin said directly. "I know why we're here. I know about the bet, the terms and conditions." Luciana masked her surprise. "And yet you still agreed to meet?" "I have my reasons," Kevin replied after a pause. 6 months may seem short, but a lot can change in that time, and if you think you can manipulate me, you're mistaken. Luciana smiled faintly. Kevin was clearly going to be more of a challenge than she expected, and she liked it. After the meeting, Luciana couldn't stop thinking about him, not because of the money, but because Kevin was the first man in years who didn't try to impress her. He challenged her. Their second meeting took place at a modest cafe, far from Luciana's usual glittering hotspots. Kevin suggested the location. Luciana accepted, curious to know what made him so sure of himself. When she arrived, Kevin was already sipping tea, calm and relaxed. "I thought you preferred 5-star restaurants," he teased. "Sometimes it's good to break the routine," Luciana replied, trying to sound equally at ease. They exchanged small talk until Kevin got straight to the point. "If we're really doing this, let me be clear," he said, setting down his cup. "I'm not interested in your money or your lifestyle. 6 months means 6 months, and when it ends, I walk away the same person I am now." Luciana studied him. He was serious. "So what do you want?" "Freedom," Kevin replied immediately. "You should know this won't change who I am. I won't be controlled." That wasn't the answer she expected, but oddly, it didn't bother her. "Fine," she said. 6 months. After that, we part ways." Kevin nodded slowly. He had accepted the challenge with a quiet resolve. Deep down, he likely suspected Luciana would try to control the situation, but he trusted his own strength. Their roles were now defined. Kevin would protect his independence, and Luciana would treat this as a business deal, at least for now. But as the wedding approached, something shifted in Luciana. This game, she began to realize, wasn't as simple as it once seemed. When the game turned, the following weeks passed like a tightrope stretched to its limit. Luciana, obsessed with regaining control, escalated her manipulation. She pulled every lever, whispered in the right ears, changed schedules, and created obstacles where none existed. She thought Kevin would eventually crumble, but he didn't. If anything, the pressure seemed to refine him. He never shouted, never lost his temper. He remained composed, dignified, even as everything around him was being shaken by Luciana's interference. Every calculated move she made seemed to strengthen him instead of weaken him, and that drove her mad. She began provoking him during casual conversations, picking at words, twisting intentions, but Kevin met every jab with calm precision, turning every attempted insult into a moment of reflection. Until one night. Luciana had returned from a high-profile charity event. Kevin hadn't attended. He said he had more important things to do. The snub had irritated her all evening. As she entered the penthouse, she found him sitting silently on the couch, reading. Without thinking, she burst out, "I don't understand you, Kevin. You have everything. Most men would kill for this life, and you treat it like prison." Kevin closed the book slowly and looked at her. "You still don't get it," he said quietly. "What I want, Luciana, can't be bought." She folded her arms, defensive. "Oh, please, don't lecture me on virtue." But Kevin stood, his expression calm but piercing. "I'm not here to impress you. I never was. But you..." He paused. "You've built a castle with no doors. All this luxury, it's just a mask. And deep down, you know it." His words lingered in the air like smoke. For the first time in her life, Luciana didn't have a retort. Something about Kevin was cracking the mirror she had polished for years. She had brought him into her world, expecting him to bend, and instead, he was holding up a reflection of everything she didn't want to see. But she wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. So she did what she knew best. She punished. She cancelled his networking events, blocked his access to people who could advance his career, even sabotaged a non-profit fundraiser he had planned with a quiet, strategic move. Kevin noticed every bit of it, but said nothing. And then one night, Kevin made his move. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city when Luciana entered the room. "You think you're still in control?" he said without turning. Luciana frowned. "And you think you're the hero in all this?" Kevin turned to face her fully, eyes steady. "I've played your game patiently, but what you never realized, Luciana, is that I was never here to win. I came here to reveal something you've tried to forget." Luciana's heart skipped. There was something in his tone, something darker. Kevin stepped forward. "Do you remember the name Richards?" She hesitated. "No," she said, trying to sound indifferent. "Of course not. People like you never remember the small companies they crush." Luciana stiffened. Kevin's voice sharpened. "My father owned a small firm. You acquired it, gutted it, and tossed it away. He lost everything, and eventually, he took his own life." Luciana staggered back as if hit. Kevin's voice trembled slightly now. "He was a good man, And while you soared in your empire, my mother and I lived in the shadows of your ambition." Luciana tried to speak, but no sound came. Kevin took another step forward. "I planned everything. From the moment I heard about your little marriage challenge, I knew it was my chance. I didn't come to fall in love. I came to make you feel what it's like to be powerless." Her world spun. The woman who always dictated the rules had been outplayed from the beginning. "You thought you were winning," Kevin said, voice now calm again. "But I've been 10 steps ahead." This story just flipped completely. Tell us in the comments, did you see this coming? Have you ever discovered a hidden truth that changed everything? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories. The truth hurts. Luciana stood frozen, her mind racing. For the first time in her carefully controlled life, she had no idea what to say. Kevin's voice was steady, but his eyes burned with pain. "My father took his life because of you," he said again. "You didn't just destroy a business, you destroyed a family." Luciana finally managed to whisper, I didn't know." Kevin nodded bitterly. "Of course you didn't, because people like you never care to look back." He paused, collecting himself. "When I heard about your stupid bet, I saw my chance. I accepted your terms, played your game, but the real game was mine. I wanted you to feel even a fraction of what you made my family feel. Lost, manipulated, trapped." Luciana collapsed onto the couch, her legs suddenly weak. Everything she believed she controlled had flipped on her. Kevin took a slow breath. "This wasn't about revenge. Not completely. I wanted you to understand pain, to live it, to wake up every day knowing you can't undo what you've done." Luciana buried her face in her hands. For the first time, guilt consumed her in full force. She tried to think of a defense, a reason, anything, but there was nothing. Her empire had been built on decisions like the one that destroyed Kevin's father. And now she was seeing the human cost of her ambition. Kevin took a final step forward, looking down at her. "I don't want to ruin you financially. That would be too easy. I want you to live with this, just like I did." He turned and left the room, leaving Luciana alone with the deafening sound of her own silence. Days passed. Kevin stayed in the penthouse, but they barely spoke. He walked by her like a ghost. He didn't shout or fight. His absence of reaction was worse. He was cold, distant, and unreadable. Luciana tried several times to approach him, but each attempt died under his quiet indifference. At breakfast, he said nothing. At night, he disappeared into his office. At one point, she whispered his name. He didn't even look at her. For Luciana, used to dominating every room, every conversation, every heart, being ignored was worse than any argument. Kevin had become her mirror. Every time she looked at him, she saw herself, not the polished, powerful woman the world admired, but the careless destroyer of lives. One morning she tried again. "Kevin," she said gently, as he was putting on his coat. He paused, but didn't turn around. "We need to talk," she pleaded. The silence was heavy. She waited, hoping for a word. Even anger would have been better than nothing, but he said nothing, just opened the door and left. Luciana sat down, feeling the sharp edges of regret closing in around her. The guilt was unbearable, but the emptiness was worse. Kevin wasn't shouting. He wasn't accusing her. He was punishing her with quiet disdain, with space, with emotional absence. And it was working. Cracks in the ice. Luciana had always been a fortress, untouchable, polished, composed, but now she walked through her own home like a stranger, haunted by silence and invisible walls. Every hallway echoed with Kevin's absence. Every meal passed without words. Her once luxurious penthouse felt like a prison. She tried to justify it all, tried to tell herself it was just a game gone wrong. But deep down, she knew this was her consequence. One night, after a long, silent dinner, she found Kevin reading on the couch. Determined, she sat across from him, voice trembling. "I know I've done terrible things. I know I've caused you pain. But please, can we at least talk?" Kevin didn't look up right away. He closed his book slowly and met her eyes. The intensity in his gaze chilled her. "Talk?" he asked, his tone dry. "Now you want words?" Luciana nodded, hopeful. Kevin stood, calm but sharp. "You built your life on silence, Luciana, on walking over people like they didn't matter. And now that you're the one being ignored, you can't handle it." "I was wrong," she whispered. "I see that now." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Do you think regret will bring my father back, or fix the years my mother and I spent in despair? No, Luciana, it won't. What you do now, it's not for me, it's for you." Luciana's eyes filled with tears. For the first time she saw it clearly. This wasn't about a bet. This was a reckoning. In the days that followed, Kevin's coldness grew sharper. Not through cruelty, but through precision. He didn't yell, he simply erased her from his world. When she tried to speak, he gave one-word answers. When she made gestures of reconciliation, he ignored them. But then came the day it all changed. Luciana returned home to find Kevin on the phone, laughing. She paused in the hallway, listening. He was talking about her choices, her manipulation, her business failures. It hit like a knife. When he hung up, she confronted him in the living room. "You're tearing my life apart," she said, voice trembling. "Work, friends, everything. You're destroying me." Kevin crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. "Destroying you? I'm just giving back what you gave. But don't worry, I'm not here to ruin you financially. That'd be too easy. I want you to live with it, slowly, day by day, just like I did." Luciana felt the floor vanish beneath her feet. She had always been the architect of other people's endings, but now she was the one being undone, piece by piece. Kevin didn't want revenge. He wanted her to feel powerlessness, and it was working. The long, full weeks passed. Kevin's indifference became the sharpest blade Luciana had ever felt. Her empire still stood, but inside, she was crumbling. She used to command attention with a look. Now, she was invisible, even in her own home. She tried everything. She left gifts, notes, apologies scribbled in half tears. None of it broke the wall Kevin had built. She walked past him every day, but he never flinched, never softened. He was methodical, cold, exact. He wasn't punishing her with rage. He was punishing her with silence. And that was far worse. Then came the humiliation. Her business meetings began collapsing. People pulled out of deals last minute. Her carefully built brand began to fracture. Whispers of incompetence and sabotage followed her. Luciana suspected but couldn't prove Kevin's hand in it. He never admitted anything, but the precision of the downfall, the timing, it all screamed of him. At home, he became colder still. He sat at different tables, took his meals in other rooms. When she spoke, he responded only with glances. When she cried, he left. Luciana was no longer the predator. She was prey. One evening, she found him on the couch, reading again, a scene so familiar it hurt. "I know what I did was unforgivable," she said quietly. "But please, can't we try?" Kevin closed the book with precision and stood. "Try," he repeated, like the word was foreign. "Try to erase the past. Try to unkill my father. Try to undo the years I watched my mother suffer." She stood up, desperate now. "I can change. I swear I can." Kevin stepped closer, his voice calm but cutting. "Do you think change will fix the broken years? No, Luciana. Change doesn't erase pain. It doesn't bring back life." She looked up at him, her eyes full of pleading. "What do you want from me?" He didn't blink. "I want you to carry it, forever, the way I did. I want every silence, every betrayal, every scar to follow you, just like they followed me." Then he turned away. Luciana collapsed onto the couch. She didn't even cry this time. There were no tears left, only stillness. The first spark of change. Luciana drifted through her days like a shadow of the woman she used to be. Gone was the sharp, confident force of power. What remained was quiet, reflective, hollow. But in that emptiness, something began to stir. She realized something. Words meant nothing anymore. Her apologies were dust. Her tears were expected. But change, real change, was action. And so, for the first time in her life, Luciana stopped trying to control. She started observing. She paid attention to Kevin, to what he liked, what he avoided. The tea he brewed every morning, strong, no sugar. The way he paused to admire fresh flowers, the books he read. The way he always left the window open at night to feel the breeze. She didn't intrude. She didn't push. She just watched. One afternoon, she went to the florist and bought a bouquet of peonies, the flower she had seen him admire once. She didn't hand them to him. She simply left them on the kitchen table. No note, no grand gesture. That evening, Kevin came home, paused at the kitchen entrance and noticed them. He didn't smile, but he picked one up, smelled it, then continued on. Luciana didn't say a word, but inside, something flickered. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely unreachable. In the days that followed, she repeated the pattern. She made his coffee quietly in the morning, exactly as he liked it. She left a book he'd been looking for on the hallway table. When he returned from a long walk, there was always tea waiting, but she never stayed to watch him drink it. No pressure, just presence. And slowly, something shifted. Kevin still didn't speak much, but the silence was no longer heavy, just quiet. One night, as the city lights shimmered outside, Luciana found him standing on the balcony. She hesitated at the doorway, holding a cup of hot tea. "I thought you might want something warm," she said gently, extending it. Kevin didn't speak, but he accepted it. She stood beside him. The silence stretched, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. Then Kevin spoke, softly, but with clarity. "Why are you doing this?" Luciana stared ahead, choosing her words carefully. "Because I realized words mean nothing now," she said. "You don't want apologies. You want proof. I'm trying to show you that I see you, that I regret everything, that I want to be different." Kevin didn't respond right away, but he didn't leave either. That moment was small, but for Luciana, it was everything. The beginning after the end, weeks passed. Luciana no longer tried to force conversations. She simply lived differently. She canceled meetings, stayed home more, cooked small meals, listened. She didn't try to make Kevin see her as changed. She simply changed. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled in the distance, Kevin walked into the room dressed for a business meeting. Luciana, seated with a book in hand, looked up quietly. "Can you cancel your meeting?" she asked softly. Kevin froze. She had never asked anything like that before, and yet without a word, he pulled out his phone and canceled it. They sat together that night on the couch, a space still between them, but no longer made of anger. Luciana didn't speak right away. She simply existed next to him. After a while, she whispered, "I'm not asking you to forgive me now, but I hope you see, I'm not who I was." Kevin nodded slowly. "I see you're trying," he said. And that was enough. From that moment on, the distance between them didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a bridge slowly being built. They started having breakfast together, talking, softly, casually. There were still wounds, still hesitation, but the darkness had lightened. Then, something unexpected happened. Luciana felt different. She had been sick in the mornings, tired, dizzy. After a quiet visit to her doctor, she returned home with a secret. That night, she told Kevin, "I'm pregnant." He didn't say anything at first. Then, slowly, tears welled in his eyes. "Are you sure?" he asked, voice trembling. Luciana nodded. Kevin stepped forward and hugged her tightly, both laughing and crying. For all they had lost, something new had arrived. "I want to do it right this time," he whispered. "Not for revenge, not for a bet. I want to marry you again, for love, for us, for this baby." Luciana smiled through her tears. "I want that too." Their second wedding was small. No press, no gold, just sincerity, just friends, just love. Months later, as Luciana danced slowly in Kevin's arms, her head resting against his chest, she whispered, "Who would have thought it all started with a bet?" Kevin smiled and held her closer. "The best bet I ever lost." And as they looked toward the future, filled with hope, healing, and new life, they knew the past had hurt, but the present was theirs to rebuild.